Welcome everyone to our governance call number 10. My name is Orhan and I'm one of the governance facilitators and a member of the governance and coordination group. And today's call is mainly going to be about our proposal for a new governance process that the governance and coordination group has proposed on our forum this week. And we would really like your input on that because nothing is written in stones and we would like to see how we can improve this together. Apart from that, there is, we're going to start with a brief governance update. And so basically just in headlines, talk about which proposals have passed. And there is also going to be an update from the governance and coordination group that I just mentioned. And Cassidy will also be talking a little bit about the token utility and the claiming website. And if there's time, we're going to go through the snapshot voting on Open Square. If anyone has any questions or don't know how to use it, we will just give a brief demonstration of that towards the end, if there is time. So let's jump in and start with the governance update. And let me see if I can share my screen here. Second here. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Oh, yes, looks good.
Thank you. All right. So since our last governance call, we have had these proposals on Centrifuge that have all passed, and they are the minting of the Tin Lake rewards, minting of the real world assets markets rewards, and these are both recurring proposals, so they will be done on a regular basis where we can adjust the parameters based on market conditions. And then there was a proposal for a mandate for the governance and coordination group that also passed. We will come back to this later as well. And the proposal for building the Centrifuge connectors, which we announced back in June, I believe. And runtime upgrade 10.14 also passed. And a proposal to accept Moonbeam's and Statement's HRMP open channel request. However, this one didn't go through, even though it actually passed because of a recent update where it wasn't possible to make batch calls. So this one needed to be resubmitted. So it's actually currently ongoing again. And then we set the amount of collators to 5 and their self-bound to 30K CFG tokens. That also passed. And lastly, the funding for the credit group that also passed. That was on Centrifuge, and on Altair, there was also a runtime upgrade, 10.20. And then another treasury proposal for those people who couldn't claim their air rewards for various reasons. There were a few of them. So we made a governance proposal from the treasury. We made a treasury proposal to be able to distribute these tokens to the affected users. So that's what's been happening since our last call. And as something new, we have created a little spreadsheet where you can see all ongoing proposals on both Centrifuge and Altair. So that's going to bring you to this spreadsheet here. And this is one that we will be updating regularly as soon as a proposal moves through the phases. So here you can see which proposals there are ongoing on both Centrifuge and Altair. So there's currently none on Altair, but 5 on Centrifuge. And you can see what step they're at, whether they're at the request for comment phase or snapshot, or it's a council motion, or it has actually moved on to an on-chain referendum. And if you click on them, you will be directed to them. So this is a good way for the community to see like when voting is required, so they can participate. So it's a new initiative that we thought might be helpful to give people an overview of what's going on. So that's the update. So I will unshare my screen again here. Now, if Cassidy is with us on the call, are you with us now, Cassidy?
Hey, yeah, I'm here.
Thank you. So if you want to give your update, then I'll pass it to you.
Cool. So unfortunately, I don't have the most exciting update. Maybe the more exciting part is coming later, or at least to me, from the governance group. But on the token utility side, the proposals are still open and still welcome discussion there. So that's for both implementing protocol fees as well as staking for pools. And so I know it's been a rather long time since there's been any facilitation of those proposals. I would say it's been, we gave an update in the last governance call. It's been a lot of different things that sort of delayed taking that forward. And I hope the very last thing is what we're going to hear a little bit more about today. But that's this framework so that I can actually have better structure to really facilitate those proposals. So as soon as we take this or have a little bit more direction from the governance group on how to take that token utility proposal forward, yeah, that I think hopefully that will be the next exciting step along the way in Centrifuge governance. I was just checking the question in the chat, but I don't think it was related to token utility. Then I just wanted to give, if there's no specific questions on that, a small update on claiming both CFG as well as AIR from the crowd loans. Just wanted to let everyone know, and we'll also be announcing this in all of our channels as well, to make sure that you've claimed your CFG and AIR on chain. So using the websites that are available from Centrifuge and Altair specifically, to make sure that you claim those CFG and AIR into your accounts, because those web pages will be taken down in about 2 weeks. And yeah, if some people are not able to meet that deadline, don't worry, we'll find a solution. But just want to make sure that everyone who wants to claim has the next 2 weeks to use those web pages. So we can link those here again in case anyone needs it, and we'll also of course mention it in our channels. But yeah, just wanted to give everyone that heads up. But then back to you.
Thank you, Cassidy, and thank you for the update. And good to hear that there is an option if people don't claim within those 2 weeks, because we still occasionally get people asking that they cannot claim because they don't have enough funds. So there are still people trying to claim these days. So, but we can assume, I guess, that the majority have already claimed, but that we will find a solution for those who don't manage to claim within the next 2 weeks. So thank you for that, Cassidy. All right, any questions to that before we move on? All right. Then the next thing is the governance and coordination group. So for those of you who don't know, the governance and coordination group consists of Ivan Imdior, who is in the chat right now, and myself. And a couple of weeks ago, we made a proposal on the forum asking for the mandate to facilitate our governance. So what does that mean? It means that we have written some objectives, some tasks that we will be responsible for in the future. And our proposal actually passed last week. The snapshot vote for the proposals passed last week. And everyone who voted, it was an anonymous yes. So thank you everyone for the support and for voting for us. So what we will be doing basically is we will be monitoring all our governance processes, and we will be able to assist people to make their proposals and help them with adding all the relevant context and information and doing it the right places. So we won't hold any particular powers over other community members. So we don't have any authority to do anything other than guiding and assisting people with their proposals. And we will also be responsible for creating these documents related to governance. So defining our processes and uploading it to the relevant places, and also moderating our channels. So we will be creating a code of conduct as well that we will propose to the community and hear feedback from. And if that proposal passes, then we will use that as a basis for our moderation in the different channels on Discord and on the forum. So that's a little bit the background about who and what the governance and coordination group is. So, and we promised that one of our first tasks would be to propose a clearer governance process. So that's what we did, and or at least we tried, and we made a proposal this week already. So Tuesday, 2 days ago. Thank you, Ivan. Ivan posted the link to the proposal on the forum, where we have proposed like how we imagine that we can do things to make it easier, to make it more transparent for users. So, and then you were probably wondering, like, why a new governance process? We had one already. Well, yes, we had a governance process, but we weren't able to distinguish between the different proposal types that we had, because different proposal types require different governance processes. So that's what we have been trying to make more clear, like which proposals require what steps. So from how it starts till how it ends. That's what we've been trying to do. And we have posted that on the forum, and there's a link to the Google Doc with the full proposal. So the post on the forum is basically just a short resume of it, but all of it is in the full proposal in the Google Doc. So we would love to hear your feedback on how you think this is, or which things you think we might have missed, and or we can do even better. Because we had one thing in mind, and that was simplicity. But we are also aware that this governance process needs to evolve over time. So it's not like this is written in stones in any way. So this is something that will be changed gradually over time, so we can adapt it to whatever needs we have. So, so yes, are there any questions so far before we continue? Any questions to either the proposal itself, if any of you already took a look at it? All right. So what I will do now is I will try to talk as little as possible and just give the most important information, and then we'll love to hear you guys' feedback on that. So let me find this here. Give me 1 second. All right. Share my screen again here. So can you guys see my screen again? Take that as a yes. I didn't hear anything.
Yes, we see your screen.
Thank you. Thank you. So what we have basically tried to do is define different proposal types. So like what kind of proposals can one make on Centrifuge or Altair? So these are the different proposal types that we ended up proposing in the first place, and these might be changed or some might be new ones might be added, but this is what we suggested to start with. So I'm just briefly going to mention them and not go too much into details right now, but the proposal types are called CPs, so short for Centrifuge Proposal, and are each followed by a number. So a CP1 type of proposal is when someone requests for a mandate in the centrifuge, within the Centrifuge DAO with funding. And a mandate is just like the governance and coordination group they got, and also credit group earlier a few months back. So that they will be CP1 types. And then there's a derivative of that called CP 1.1. So that's basically the same, but just without initial request for funding. So, and then we have a CP 1.2 that is for the removal of a mandate. So how can someone be deprived of a mandate? And that's what we have also tried to figure out, how that should be done or could be done. And then we have a CP2. They are our treasury proposals. So people requesting funding would need to create a CP2. CP3s will be used for runtime upgrades. And CP 3.1 will be used for emergency proposals. So in case there is a hack or exploit that need to be dealt with urgently, we have suggested how that can be done as well. And then we have a CP5, which is the Centrifuge, the pool onboarding proposal, the POP. And for those of you who were in our last call, you probably noticed that there is a version 2 in construction, and there is a workshop the 29th of October where everyone interested can join and contribute to the new version of the POP. So that is still not done. And then you're probably wondering, why did I skip CP4? Well, that is because we have defined CP4 as general improvements as anything that doesn't fit under those that I mentioned first. So we did try different approaches, whether how we can divide these general improvements into more specific categories, but it quickly ended up being too complicated, and it was a little bit tricky to clearly define what type of proposal would be the one or the other kind. So CP4 is this big box of proposal types right now, at least, so that hopefully in the future we will be able to distinguish better between them and maybe split them up in subcategories. So this is what the different proposal types are. And as for the governance process, we have, if you click on the full proposal, you will get to this Google Doc where all of these proposal types are more clearly defined, and under each of them, under each of them, we have defined the governance process for each of them. So I think one good way to determine whether we have achieved in making this more clear or not is to imagine that you want to create any sort of proposal on Centrifuge and go and see if you can figure out where that proposal type fits in and whether you have the required information to create it. Is it clear what you have to do first and where you have to do it? So if people manage to do that, that means we are in the right direction of creating a more clear governance process. But again, we are open for suggestions to these suggestions that we've made. So I'm going to unshare my screen here again. Now, yeah, are there anything so far that you want clarified? I know I went through it a little bit quickly, but I didn't want to just go through everything step by step. So just wanted to talk a little about it high level. So anything so far that doesn't make sense? Oh, and Raul, to answer your questions, we haven't taken any of the facts and origins into consideration for this one. We know it's going to be very relevant for Gov2, but we decided not to include it in this iteration of the governance process. It was something we did consider, but then it quickly became too much to include. An emergency proposal in terms of timing. Well, obviously we are not devs, neither Ivan or I. So, but what we thought, so maybe a dev can clarify the technical process a little bit better. But what we were thinking is that once an exploit or a hack is detected, then the devs just address that issue and make the relevant proposals to do it, and then afterward create what you call a post-mortem. So no need to create anything in advance, because obviously time is going to be of the essence when there are situations like this. So address the issue and then make a post-mortem. But and it's meant to yeah, maybe is there anyone from the devs who are able to explain the technical process a little bit better, because neither Ivan or I are obviously experts in that category. Are you aware of this, Lucas or Miguel? I don't know if Miguel is on the call, but Lucas, would you be able to assist here?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, the emergency proposal mostly cuts down on like the the on-chain is the same way, right? Like today, I mean, today the on-chain to push through an emergency proposal, the council can decide to fast track it. And that's how we can speed up the on-chain part. But the main part about the emergency proposal is the off-chain consensus, right? So like how long it's in the forum, how for discussion, the RFC phase, the skipping the snapshot, right? And then just deciding if it's deemed like urgent that the council has the ability to fast track the vote as much up to, I think the minimum right now is 3 hours. But yeah, I think the key point is here, like, of course, we want the proposals to be discussed with an RFC, and we want proposals to be discussed to be voted on with Snapshot, or like kind of like be all of this happening. But if you can't, then you can skip it in an emergency. I think that's maybe the short answer. I think in the future, this could be with not, I guess, Rahul, like applying it to Gov2, right? Maybe, and we started trying to design, I guess, right? You said it, you tried to start designing it with Gov2 in mind, but for now, this is not shipped yet, so we're gonna work with what we have. But yeah, I guess it could be different origins with different levels of participation to kind of like increase like emergency votes.
Thank you for jumping in, Lucas. So yeah, Raul, this is definitely something that we will take more into consideration once we adapt the Gov2. I believe it's going to be deployed on Kusama by the end of the year, and then shortly after on Polkadot, right? If I understood it correctly. And then afterwards, we can make the decision to when to adapt it. So, but let's not, because yeah, that's going to be, a lot of things are going to be different then. So we have created this new governance process with our current model in mind. So now there were a couple of things that we discussed internally, but we didn't, but that we would like your guys' opinion on as well. And one thing is funding requests. So right now, the way Treasury proposals they work is that it's only you submit a Treasury proposal and then the council only votes on whether that proposal should be granted or not. So there's no community involvement right now for whether someone should request funding or not. It's only the council who decide that, at least still for now, while we still have a council. So one thing that was discussed is whether it would make sense to involve the community anyway in these kind of funding requests by creating a snapshot vote. We haven't suggested that in our current governance process, because the way it works is that you create a post on the forum, a CP2 for requesting funding, and then directly a Treasury proposal on chain. And the community obviously have the possibility to comment on it, but they are not actually actively voting on whether this should be granted or not. So one thing we thought about is whether it would be an idea to include a snapshot vote. And for those of you who are not familiar with snapshot votes, then they are not on-chain voting. So it's basically a replacement of our forum polls. So an easy way to look at it is that it's an on-chain vote, your off-chain vote using on-chain data. So you use your tokens to participate in the voting, but no transaction is actually made and no lockup of token is made or anything. So would it make sense to include the community that way, to create a snapshot vote as a sort of sentiment to see whether a Treasury proposal should be granted or not? What do you guys think about that? Any input on that part?
I guess, I mean, the obvious downside would be like, what about like fatigue of too many snapshots to vote on? Because we don't have that problem yet. But if that happens, like maybe we can. I think Polkadot today actually has a trigger as a threshold. If it's above a certain value, it actually is forced to be a referenda. So even if for large brands, actually they can't decide. Like it's not just the council. Maybe if we realize it's too much, a solution could be to say, well, the community or the token holders give feedback on like categories for grants, and then the council can sort of allocate to those categories, or like up to a certain limit, and then we request community feedback if it goes above.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's also important to note that even though a snapshot vote was introduced for Treasury proposals, they would not be binding. It's basically just to get a sentiment from the community and involve the community to hear what they think about this. Because in the end, the decision lies within the council. They are the only ones that can vote yes or no to a Treasury proposal. So whether we're going to have too many snapshot votes or not, I cannot say right now. That's not the case, as you mentioned, Lucas, but let's see how it goes in the future. But this is definitely something we can keep in mind for when things.
I think actually that it's not only about the amount of funding we requested, but I think more like a relevance filter of the type of contribution could make sense. And I also agree that some kind of input from the community can be super helpful. But yeah, so maybe adding to what Lucas just said, which also makes sense, could be meaningful for us as a community.
I think, but like the reality is we do need to vote. I mean, token holders control the treasury, but right now I think the council has this role of evaluating these proposals, because someone needs to evaluate them that can kind of like present, I guess, also if the proposal makes sense, right? Like one example, if like I'm technical enough to like look at a proposal and decide, okay, like, does this work? Is this going to work? Is the effort correct? Like, or is the technical code that they want to write going to be of good quality? And I can make those. I can maybe try to make those decisions and then vote based on it, right? But most people can't. Even if I think of like our team, right? Like, I think that the evaluating a proposal is going to be, we'll always have to pull in different experts that are kind of like trusted in the community. In a way, today the council is doing that. In the future, maybe there could, like what most DAOs do, right, is they have like the grants like subgroup that has maybe a mix of technical, marketing, design, community, really across the board, right? Experts that can kind of like support the community in giving advice on which proposal makes sense and which one doesn't. And obviously, like we're still at the baby stage where like we clearly don't have enough volume, enough capacity in the DAO to do all this. But ultimately, I think this is where it will end, right? Because and similar, like the idea of the credit group is similar, right? Like token holders vote on which pools go live with the POP, but token holders aren't all credit experts. So how do token holders make a decision of whether a pool should go live, right? They're kind of like relying on this, you said expert committee, which I think is a good term, right? To kind of summarize and give advice and kind of like share opinions. And then you as a token holder make your decision. Do you think this is reasonable? It makes sense? Are you okay with the risks or the returns or the costs? Right, and then you vote based on that. So maybe like grants will also go in that direction.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as you say, we are still at a very early stage at forming the DAO, and we have two groups already there right now. That's the credit group and the governance and coordination group. But once in the future we have more of these groups, they could be sort of delegates. I guess that's what you're talking about a little bit, where people can delegate their voting to this trusted group that they trust will act in their best interest and who have the knowledge, whether that's technical or financial knowledge, to give the best advice or make the best decisions. So, but I agree, I wouldn't be able to determine whether a technical proposal is good or bad just by looking at the code. That's not my expertise. I have other things I'm good at. So yes, that's the direction we should be moving towards, and we're moving slowly, but we are moving there. So we are walking in that direction. Yeah. So this is something that we can think about. If anyone want to continue, whether it should the discussion about whether we should include the community in the example I use, the funding requests, then you can continue it on the forum post, because this proposal that we have made, these suggestions that we have made so far, they are going to be changed. Probably already before it moves to a snapshot vote, it's going to be changed a couple of times based on the feedback you guys give us. So yes, let's another thing that we also wanted to hear some opinions about are the numbering of the different proposal types, because the way we imagined it is when you create a proposal, so if you create a funding proposal, we just call it CP2 followed by the name of the proposal. For example, CP2 funding of the governance and coordination group. But other projects, they do add these numbers to enumerate these sort of indexing these proposals. So if you can have a CP 2.1 for the first type of proposal in that category. And that's not what we had in mind, but we already, some people already commented on it on the forum post. I believe, Christian, you were the one, and Robert, you guys asked about it. If you are here in the chat, would you mind asking that again or bringing that up?
Yeah, no problem. I can start, Robert, if you want to. I had the idea because I know it from other governance systems like Synthetics or Maker. They have a numbering system. For example, the CP1, CP2, and so on. It's great, but yeah, it looks like a template. And if you have more types of more proposals of one type of the same type, then it can get a little bit confusing. So maybe if you start, let's take CP1 for example, and start with, yeah, I don't know, number 1 or so, that it differentiates a little bit from the others. Otherwise, it's getting more and more confusing. As you said, we are not in the situation right now, but in the future, when we have a lot of proposals, it might become confusing. And the title as well, so that we have some uniform title and the numbering system. That would be nice.
So if I understand you correct, you mean that each proposal should have a unique number, but where the CP type comes before that, right? Is that correctly understood?
That's my intention. Yes, that would be nice.
All right.
I don't have a problem. I don't see a problem when it's called CP something, CP1, but if you have in addition another number, a running order, that would be nice.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the sense. It makes sense. It's just not something we thought about, but maybe you're right. If we want to scale and if we think long term in the future, then it might make sense to be able to distinguish between them other than from the title. So, and I don't see this as something big to change. This is something that can be done rather quickly. And the way I see it, if we pursue this, then it would be to like the first type of proposal that is made in that type. So for example, the first funding request that will be made will be called CP 2.01, for example. And the next one will be CP 2.02, for example. Is that the direction you are headed as well?
Yeah, definitely. Of course, we already started with governance, so we don't start at zero. We already had some proposals and so on. So that's something we should keep in mind what to do with it. If we start from the beginning, or if we include the other ones, I don't know. So
yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, okay, yeah, Michael asked, it would be nice if the numbering included in the date. Yeah, as Lucas said, it will probably make the numbers too long and it will make it look overwhelming. There are other ways we could include that, but I think in that particular case, it's going to look a little bit messy, but that's just my opinion. So, Robert, you also commented on that. Was it basically the same as Christian, or was it different what you meant? If you are okay with
yeah, what I was saying was basically the same as Christian. So I mean, I think maybe Christian's thinking more about like a universal like running order. Is that right, Christian?
Actually, Lucas posted it in the chat. That's what I was thinking about. It's not rocket science. It's just yeah, it's a standard like CP something. That's my intention. That's my thinking.
Yeah, I was just kind of I was more asking, you know, like what I mean, 'cause the way it seems to me is that like there's a running order, but it's a running order for each respective category, as opposed to something universal.
Yeah, exactly. We have different categories as we have seen, and if each category starts with another number, that's fine. Like 401 for CP4 and CP501, for example.
Yeah, I think that's cleaner. Yeah.
Yeah, all suggestions are good. I think we can continue this in the forum post, and if other people have input on this matter as well, please do provide your input, because we will listen to all of it and take it all into consideration and adapt this model before we move forward with the proposal. So this is the chance for everyone to contribute and, yeah, put their signature on the governance process. So yes, anyone else has any input on the numbering or the categorizing of these proposal types?
Hi, folks. I had a quick thought there. Maybe in the lettering, in the kind of classification of different proposals, we could include some acronym type letters. So if there's funding involved, maybe there's a FR for a funding request. That might make things a little bit easier to sort. Sort of like having trash receptacles that go for plastic, glass, so on, having a different shape and size for making it easier for people to sort through, so that it becomes a little bit more user-friendly for an average participant, because numbers can get enigmatic if it's especially if the kinds of proposals proliferate over time.
Very good point. So if I understand it correctly, you mean like a sort of an addition to the numbering. So if you have a funding proposal, so it's still a CP2 and then followed by an FR, so like an additional confirmation of what is so people can quickly recognize it. Is that basically the scope of it?
The point was earlier raised around how would we go and retroactively rename stuff. So historical consistency is probably important here as well, but maybe not even using two, but just saying FR might be a good nomenclature.
I see the point. Could you give a specific example? For example, if it is a funding proposals are called CP /2. So where would you include that FR in the title, just as an example, if you don't mind?
CP.FR. And then you could do subtypes with small case letters, maybe, on a variety of things that might be related to the content.
I see.
So
Interesting.
CP.FR.G could be funding proposal for governance. So I'm not sure how that would jibe with the prior proposal structures, but I'd love to hear from Christian from this as well, and how they've been materially involved in facilitating the variety of proposals coming through. If that might be saving 5 minutes of time each time there's a proposal, that might be helpful perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, the examples given in the chat are quite interesting. So yeah, that would be definitely an option. I don't have a strong opinion on that right now, but maybe why not? Yeah, maybe not at the beginning, because can become quite overwhelming when there are a lot of letters and numbers. But the FR and so on definitely makes sense in the title. Maybe So I partly agree here.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
all they're all good.
Just a
Sorry, go
related thought on this, if we want to keep talking about this, I'm happy to defer to a different moment. But in terms of intelligibility of the proposals for less active members, it might be helpful to have a demonstration of here's the state of affairs and a larger map of how Centrifuge works. Kind of a ongoing visual map of here are the creditors, here's their governance. Here's the underwriters / credit team, here's the governance team. Here are the pools, here's how the state of affairs are with the tokens on air and CFG. And then matching any particular proposal to a particular area on that map can help make these proposals more intelligible to a wider audience. So just another comment in the realm of making proposals easier to submit and understand by a larger group.
very good point. And that is, or yeah, is one of the purposes of the new process, to make it more clear, like what to do and where to do it. So thank you for bringing that up as well. Anyone else has any input? These are all valuable input we are getting. So, and I've been taking notes of them as well. So we can decide which direction we want to go, because personally, I don't have any strong opinion on which one of those suggestions we could go for. The only really interest I have is to keep it simple, and you guys have the same interest, otherwise you wouldn't suggest these things. So as long as we keep them simple and as user-friendly as possible, that should be our focus and priority. So thanks, anyone. Anyone else want to jump in and add their thoughts to this particular thing? All right. Well, if someone if anyone doesn't want to speak up here, but they feel more comfortable doing it in writing, please do join the discussion in the RFC on the forum, and all input is welcome and is taken into consideration, because we have been trying to think of everything, but Ivan and I have been so like in this little environment that we sometimes you stare yourself blindly into it and you don't see everything. So it would be great to have some other people who see this for the first time and just give their first impression of what they think. Does it make sense? So yeah, please do join the discussion. All right. We have a couple of things on the agenda still. If there are no more input or thoughts on this, we can move on. All right. So thank you, everyone, for now. So something entirely different. Last month, we forgot to give out the special NFT, and not talking about the POAPs, but the special NFT we give to those who do a little bit extra in terms of participating in governance. So showing up to the calls, contributing to the discussions, etc. And we have some really nice NFTs, and Ivan just linked to them on OpenSea there. And last month, the winner of this NFT is Leo Sherman. Are you with us in the call today? If not, that is fine. We will contact you in on Discord to let you know, and so you can provide your wallet address so we can send it to you. So congratulations, Leo, and thank you for contributing to the discussion. And yeah, keep showing up. Obviously, you're not here today, but otherwise, always here. All right. Now, another thing I want to mention before we forget is the monthly POAPs we give away for all participants in our governance call. And Ivan, could you please post a link to the Google form that they have to submit? Thank you, Ivan. So if you want the POAP for participating in this particular governance call, then go to that link, fill out the form, and contact Dr. Cao on Discord. Maybe we could link to his handle on Discord so people can contact him, or should they just, or you can just go to the general chat on Discord and just, oh, thank you, Ivan. Ivan posted his handle. So you can contact him to receive your POAP. And we are doing this manually now, but we want to try to automate this process a little bit. So Jeff, Dr. Cao doesn't have to do this manually every month. So, but thank you for doing it so far. All right. Let's see. See if there was anything else. Yes. One thing I just want to go through with you before ending the call is just to show you how to vote in a snapshot. And because we were meant to do it last week, but we didn't have time for it. But it's very, very intuitive, but I just want to show it just in case so you guys know how to do it. So firstly, as I said, a snapshot vote has replaced our forum polls. So instead of creating polls on forum where to decide to get the sentiment around the proposal from the community, we have now decided to use snapshot voting after we integrated Subsquare. So let me show you how that works. So let me share my screen quickly here. Yeah. So just two things. There's something called Subsquare and there's something called OpenSquare. And we usually refer to them as the same, but Subsquare is the user interface for on-chain voting, and OpenSquare is the user interface for the off-chain voting, so the snapshots. So the snapshots are actually on OpenSquare here. So what you do is you go to voting.opensquare.io and then show you what that looks like. This will look like this. Then you select Centrifuge. So you can see all the snapshot votes that have already ended. And there is one active right now. And if you want to create a snapshot vote, you obviously click the new proposal here, but I'm just going to create a test one. So I have already done it in our test environment. But if you click this new proposal, you will see, sorry, something up with this. You will see a screen like this. So I'm just going to create a test snapshot vote. And if you're voting, obviously this is already filled out in advance, but you can just get a quick introduction to how to create one if you are the one proposing something. So this is like a forum poll where you want the sentiment around your proposal. Do you agree with this, yes or no? And then the start date can set it to start now, or you can set it to start in an hour or the day after. Select, and end time, we generally say 7 days, but this can be longer, that's up to the proposer, but minimum 7 days should they run for. Select, and select snapshot time. Don't select anything here because the default time will be the block where this was created. So obviously we need to connect our wallet first, like this. Publish. Snapshot vote created. So now imagine that you want to vote in one of these. So you need to log in with your wallet, just like I did. Press your option, yes or no. And you don't need to click an amount or conviction or anything, because you will vote with the amount of CFG you had when this snapshot was taken. So at the block when this snapshot was created, you just press vote. And it's done. The vote is registered here. So it's very, very simple. Log in with your wallet, press yes or no, vote, sign, done. So we're gonna see many more of these in the future, because as I said, they have replaced our forum polls. All right. So any closing thoughts, any closing questions? Yes, I agree, Raul. They have done a really nice job. I find it very nice and clear, and we have requested some things like notification system and calendar that they will customize for us, and they're also very responsive, the team. So every time we've had an issue with them or with the portal, a small bug, they are very quick to react usually. So we are very happy about it, and that's why we made it a part of our governance process as well. Basti asking, does it have to show how many CFG I'm holding? Yes, if you have logged in with the wallet you want to vote with, then it will display the amount that you can vote with. So basically the amount of tokens you held when the snapshot was taken. So yes, it should show you the amount that you are voting with. But unlike an on-chain referendum, you don't have to select whether you vote with conviction, so 1x, 2x, 3x, or the amount. So you just have to vote yes or no and sign the transaction. So yes, but again, this is our start of our new governance process, and with new user interfaces and new governance process, we want to shape this whole process so it suits our needs, and so that we are able to adapt it going forward with all the changes that might come, like for example, Gov2. So yes. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming today and for listening to me and us. So
Hey, Raul, one quick thing that might be helpful for everyone to think about is if we are in touch with possible borrowers and lenders, how could we encourage them to be users of Centrifuge now? What are some of the best sources, resources, language to utilize for it? Since
sorry,
we're all holders.
I didn't hear the first part of your question before.
Oh, sure, I can repeat.
Please repeat it. Sorry.
No worries. Since we're all stakeholders here and aligned in making Centrifuge a bigger success than it already is. And wanted to prime ourselves for, engaging capital providers and borrowers. What's the best way to support them or encourage them to begin using Centrifuge now if we're in contact with anyone? Can you sort of give us a maybe helpful resources to direct people to, and maybe some language that we can support their consideration of Centrifuge?
Good question. I would say the best place to direct them right now would actually be to our forum. And I know it's looks a little bit over, it can be a little bit overwhelming if that's the first thing they see. But the website, official website, and the forum, I think those two would be the best for now. I mean, we are working with the documentation to make all of this, to present all of this in a more structured and clear way than it is now. So, but this is also one of the things that we will be doing, the governance and coordination group, at least in terms of these governance documentation. So yeah, and as Colin says, let's start this discussion on the forum, because that's a very important point you're bringing up, Sam. Would you be okay with creating a forum post? Excellent. Sure. Thank you. All right. Okay. Well, then once again, if no one else has anything, then would you be okay? Let me see, what's it say here? Yeah, let's call it a night, a day, or afternoon. And thank you everyone for turning up. And see you next month.